Are you a new home cook and you just want to learn the basics, or you're like me and you've never been taught how to cook, but now you have to cook because your family and yourself rely on it? Well, this video is for you. We are starting a new series called Home Cooking 101 because I want to share with you all the skills that I've accumulated and learned throughout a decade's worth of cooking for our family. Now, I am by all means not a professional chef, but I do know my way around the kitchen, and I want to help you learn to cook not in a measuring sense, but I really just want you to learn how to cook with your senses, with theory in mind, with freestyling and just tasting. And that's usually how I cook. And I want to show you how we do that without all the stress of taking out all your measuring cups and all your spoons and making sure you have like everything chopped up perfectly. No, we're not going to do that. Let's just cook. I'm going to share everything with you from a friend's perspective, just me cooking at home and sharing with you all the little tips and tricks that I've learned to just make the most basic things at home. Now, a little bit of a background about me is when I was growing up, I was not allowed to be in the kitchen. My mom deemed that it was way too dangerous for me to be in the kitchen. And so I was never allowed in the kitchen. My mom didn't even know how to use an oven. She was Chinese and she made traditional Chinese food, and my dad would cook like Southeast Asian because he's Malaysian. And fast forward a few years, I went to school in Switzerland for hotel management, and I did a few little like cooking courses here and there as it was part of the program, where we just cooked traditional French cooking for a French restaurant. And that was how I learned a few of our sort of basic cooking skills, I want to say, like the flavors and just basic like chopping skills. Then fast forward a few more years, me and my husband got married, and of course we started having kids, and I was always a foodie. I love to eat because if you know Asian culture, food is like the heart of everything. We just love food. Everything's all about food. And so I always had a passion for food. I had to learn how to cook for our growing family. We now have 5 kids. I was never a great cook in the very beginning. Now, this is a picture of some mashed potatoes. It's a box mashed potatoes, which Trey and I have a running joke on. It's an inside joke because I made this before and it was like the worst mashed potatoes ever. The mashed potatoes that I made turned out really disgusting, and it was like so thick and so gluey that it was like wallpaper. You don't laugh. Trey's in the background laughing at me because he knows. I used to watch a lot of videos on cooking, and that is how I discovered my love for cooking, and I just started to learn some of the basic skills and some of the basic flavor profiles for specific cuisines. Different cultures use different flavors, and that's what I've learned throughout my almost, I think, going on 15 years of cooking, I want to say. And I really hope that I can help you out just to teach you the things that I know. Like I said, I'm not a professional chef, but I do want to share the things that I've learned so I can help you make your life easier and less stressful in the kitchen. Today is the sort of clear out the fridge day. We usually have a day right before grocery shopping to clear out all of the fridge to make sure we use up everything that we have in the fridge. We don't want to waste anything as much as possible. So I have some leftover vegetables, broccoli, zucchinis. I have some mirepoix that I actually already chopped up for just some prep earlier on this week. I've got some like leftover cabbage here, some potatoes, some peppers, and tomatoes. And today, we're just gonna be making soup. This is a great tip for you if you're looking to just use up all of the vegetables that you have in your fridge. If you have these very simple, like cheapo ingredients such as onions and celery and carrots and a bunch of other vegetables, I'm gonna show you how to make a quick soup without really any measurements. You don't have to measure at all. Seriously, guys, taste as you go. Let's get cooking. I'm just gonna put this into my pot here. This actually looks like a bit too small of a pot here. Maybe I'll just transfer. Maybe, we'll see. I'm just gonna leave it as is for now. So I have a bunch of mirepoix here. In case you don't know, we use a lot of mirepoix here, which is the basis of any soup, and really anything if you want to. It's just carrots, onions, celery, and it adds so much flavor to your food. It's the basis, and of course garlic if you want to add some garlic. We don't use too much garlic here because it's a blood thinner, so we just prefer to use carrots, onions, and celery. Very simple. We're going to start by sauteing down these vegetables. We're adding some salt and some grapeseed oil. I do recommend that you pre-salt this layer. You can always add a little bit later down the line, but pre-season this so this salt also helps with the caramelization of the onion. See, the thing about soup that I like is there is no measuring. We're not measuring how much cabbage that you have or tomatoes that you have or peppers that you have. I don't even measure my salt or my oil. For this pot, I probably put about a tablespoon of oil, but you could just do a quick drizzle. It's not gonna hurt you if you add a little bit more or a little bit less. For a soup, I typically start with about a good 2 pinches of salt. And then of course, you're always going to cook it down, taste it. If it's not salty enough, definitely add more. But I generally like to just do like maybe 1 or 2 little pinches of salt. That's generally the rule, really for anything. And then, you know, you have half a pepper, use half a pepper. I'm gonna use a whole pepper because why? I have it. Is it gonna ruin the recipe if you just had half a pepper? Not really. It's not really a recipe. We're cooking to feed our family and yourself. You shouldn't be stressed out over, you know, if you have half or pepper or a whole pepper. And this also goes with like seasonings and stuff. Generally, I like to just say I use about a tablespoon of Italian seasonings or onion powder. You can just use however much you want. If you really love Italian seasoning, you love an herbaceous type of soup or anything that you're cooking, go ahead and add more. You can't really go wrong with adding more onion powder or like paprika. Really, you can't go wrong with these seasonings. All of these aromatics, my onions, carrots, and celery, are just sauteing in some oil and some salt. It's just getting nice and tender, and it's going to start caramelizing a little bit, and then I'm just adding the rest of my vegetables. You can add it in whatever kind of order you like to. I really like to add like the peppers and tomatoes first, just because it releases more flavor into the soup. But it's up to you. This is just what I like to do. The more that you cook, the more that you will develop your own way of cooking and the way that you like to do things. There is just not one way. So I definitely just encourage you to kind of explore and just do things the way that you like to. And just try it out. It's not gonna hurt. And it's always gonna be good because as long as you're taste testing everything, you're gonna know that, oh, I like the flavor of onion powder. Oh, I love the flavor of smoked paprika and this and that. So you can just add more later, or you can add more the next time that you make it. So simple. I'm chopping the tomatoes right now to add to my soup. I love releasing the tomatoey flavor and caramelizing the tomatoes in the soup when I'm making soup. Also, a really, really general tip that I like to use with any soup that I'm making: you start with onions, carrots, and celery, of course, your mirepoix, your base. Then I love the flavor of these three with tomatoes and potatoes. You can add any other vegetable, but really generally, the potato helps bulk up the meal and makes it sort of a more complete meal, complete soup. The tomatoes just add some acidity to your soup, and the other vegetables just add a lovely fragrance to your soup as well. So this is a base that I like to use. You can omit whatever that you want. And then you can add any vegetable that you want. We're just adding some cabbage here because that's what we have. If you like collard greens or like Swiss chard, if you have that, you can add that too. Make sure you're giving it a good stir here and there. If you can caramelize the vegetables, that would be even better. So next tip, whenever you're cooking soup, you want to make sure that you're cooking these aromatics down a little bit before you add anything else, such as your bulky type thing. So this is my base, right? I'm going to try to cook this down if you have time. I'm going to try to cook this down for about 5 minutes or so, just until I see some brown bits developing on the bottom of this pot because it just adds some delicious flavors. You don't have to if you don't have time. Just I've made soup where I just dumped all the vegetables in here and just kind of let it cook down for a little bit of time, but generally I do like to cook it like this. And you just have the heat on like about medium high or so. Sometimes I like to just do it high just to speed things up. Get that caramelized, and then we can add our potatoes. I like to add our potatoes last minute because really I don't want the potatoes to start sticking down on the pot at the bottom, so I like to just keep it like this. And you can add any other vegetables you want. If you want some beans in there, go ahead and add that. If you, I don't know, have okra growing in the garden, add that too. Okra adds a little bit of sliminess, but it's still really good and great for you, for your stomach. You can add, what else can you add? Zucchinis, butternut squash, cauliflower, anything. Another tip I like to do is to warm up or toast up the seasonings when we are toasting up the vegetables. So I have some Italian seasoning I like to just warm up. You know we're not going to measure here, so put as much or as little as you want. You can kind of tell, like I would say I put about maybe 2 tablespoons worth. Come a little closer so I can show you what it looks like in the pot, just so it may help you see how much I put generally. You can see this is how much Italian seasoning I put. It's probably about 2 tablespoons worth. You don't have to put that much if you don't want to. I'm gonna add some smoked paprika. This is generally about how much I put just for this type of soup. I'm going for sort of like an herbaceous Italian seasoning, Italian soup type thing. So I don't want to put too much smoked paprika, but I do want to be heavy-handed in Italian seasoning. So that's what I did. If you don't have Italian seasoning, you can do like just oregano and rosemary and thyme, things like that. Italian seasoning is just basically a mix. And I have some onion powder here. I like onion powder because it adds a lot of umami. So this is generally how much I put roughly. So then we're just going to mix it up. You can see that the tomatoes are already releasing some of its juices in there, kind of. Right here I have about 3 red potatoes. I think I could maybe conjure up a few more potatoes, but I have here about 3 potatoes. These are just red potatoes. They're kind of decent size, pretty good sized. And depending on how much potatoes you like, you can put as many potatoes you like. We're not going to measure this. We're just going to add potatoes. And this thickens up the soup. You want to make sure that you understand and are aware that this will thicken up your soup a little bit. Once you cook it in, because of the starches, it will release a little bit of the starches. We do like to mash up the potatoes as well once we cook it. But yeah, let's just add some potatoes to our soup. Now I'd say it's been about 5 minutes since we started cooking everything down. Maybe like 5 to 10 minutes, I'd say. I haven't added any water to the soup yet. I'm just going to chop up the potatoes now so we can get that sort of melding with all of the spices and all the flavors. Get all the flavors introducing each other in the pot. I generally like to kind of dice it like this size. It will break down a little bit as it cooks. You don't have to cut it a certain size, just you want to make sure it's, you know, it's kind of like something like this. Also, I know that spring is almost here. We're not going to really be making too much soup around here, but I mean, you know, if you are still a fan of soup, then make your soup. And generally, I do find that making soup really is a frugal way to use all of your vegetables, and it fills up a lot of bellies. So I will probably still continue to make soup even throughout the summertime and springtime. After the seasonings and the potatoes are put into this pot, we are going to stir it up, make sure all of the spices are coating the potatoes just like this. Because we're seasoning by layers, don't forget to now salt a second layer, and then we're going to add some water. Depending on how much soup you're making or how big the pot is, generally I like to put the water levels at about 1 inch, 1.5 inches above the vegetables. Then you're going to bring the soup up to a boil, cover it, and then you're going to simmer it low and slow. I do want to mention that these steps work for pretty much all soups. This is another soup that I made throughout the week. It's like a cabbage, broccoli, and potato because we like to bulk up our soups with potato. And these steps apply perfectly. This soup is just starting to boil. this is typically a good time for you to just taste the soup. I know it's gonna be hot, so just be careful, obviously, but just, you know, taste it. Does it need more salt? Mine doesn't. Mine is actually perfect. Does it need more seasoning? Does it need more garlic? Do you like the flavor profile that you're developing right now? Use your senses and use your taste buds and adjust your taste buds because it's important. You want to make sure that it tastes good and savory and make sure that it's salted enough because but don't over salt it because it's going to start cooking. As it cooks down a little bit, it's going to condense the flavors. The more you cook it down, the saltier it gets because it's condensing that salt, what's it called? Like salt, the salt quantity of it, I suppose, in the soup. So just make sure that it's just there because you can always add salt later on. You can't take away salt. So just keep that in mind. You can always add some water, but I would suggest just make sure that it's good tasting. It's not too salty, but it is just right there. This is perfect for me. Now that the soup is nice and bubbling, we're going to put it in the back burner and I'm going to set it to about a 3 on my setting. It's kind of like low-ish. We want to make sure that it's simmering throughout the day. Now it's pretty early, it's about lunchtime right now. I'm going to simmer it until it's dinner time at about 5, 6 o'clock. If you don't have enough time, I would suggest you still try to simmer your soup at least 20, 30 minutes. Just to get the flavors kind of melding. You want to make sure that the soup is like nice and flavorful, but obviously do what you can. Cook it as long as you can. I would suggest the longer, the better, because soup is always better when it's cooked low and slow, always. So this is one of the pots that I don't have a lid for, so I'm just going to put a plate here. And we're going to I put it on a number 3 setting. You can put it maybe 2.5, 3. And this is going to simmer nice and slow until it is done for dinner. Also, I want you to be aware. I want you to test your stove because my 3 setting is not going to be the same as yours. So don't blame me for any burnt food. You want to make sure that you check it and just, lift up your lid and see if it's simmering slowly. Then it's good to go. You don't want to burn your food. So I'm just saying. I don't want you blaming me for burning your food because I said to set it at a 3. We're freestyle cooking here. There is no, this is right, this is the wrong way. We're cooking with your kitchen in mind, with your ingredients in mind. So you want to just make sure that everything that you do is up to your settings and your house. So just check your soup, just make sure. And just give it a stir every once in a while if you can, Just make sure. Lower the better, but you want to make sure that there's a little bit of bubbles in there. You're basically slow cooking the soup. Okay, alrighty, it is dinner time. Let's come back to this soup here. I'm just taking off the cover. You can see it's kind of condensed. Can you see that? So at this point, you can either mash it a little bit just to thicken up the consistency, or you can just leave it as is, however you like your soup, or you can even hand blitz it as much as you like, into like a smooth soup. Now for us, I like to mash it a little bit and then leave some of it for the chunkiness and the textures in there. You can see there are some chunky bits, some soupy bits. The soup is rich and very flavorful. I think it's perfect. I know Trey would want probably a little bit more salt, and then we can also add some spice if you want to. You can absolutely dress this soup up however you want. Add some garnish in there, add a drizzle of olive oil if you please, add some spice if you want, anything that you want to do to go a little extra. I'm going to serve this to Trey. I added a little bit of spice at the end as well.
Smells delicious.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right, taste test.
All right.
Can I salt it? Okay.
Mm-hmm. It's perfect.
Perfect?
Mm-hmm.
Is it a little spicy?
Perfect. Perfect.
Good job.
Yeah, it's delicious.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
Is it?
It's like a little sweet and
Like with the carrots
spicy.
and-
Yeah.
Do you like potato soup?
Hmm. I could eat potatoes every day.
Yeah, you probably could.
Yep. Roasted potatoes, potato soup, that potato gratin.
Right.
Yeah.
As you can see, it didn't really take a lot to make this soup. Like, we just put really simple ingredients in, and then I cooked it for a few hours since lunchtime. So it's been about 6 hours. It'll probably not be the same if you cooked it for like 30 minutes.
It wouldn't.
But you know,
It's not.
you do what you can. If you can, just let it sit and just make sure that you watch the water because you don't want it to burn. That's very important. Don't want to lose its water content.
Or just put it in a crock pot, right?
Or just put it in a crock pot.
On
Yeah.
low.
Yeah.
And just let it simmer all day.
Yep. Perfect. Good idea. We don't have a crock pot.
Right. Have it like chopped the night before.
Yep.
Wake up in the morning, throw it in the crock pot, go to work,
Come home to some soup.
come home to some soup.
And I was saying, because it's springtime and summertime, it's going to be a little hot, but we'll still probably be making some soup because it's frugal.
Yeah. And it's good. Make you sweat. Really
And
good.
all the nutrients are like cooked into the water, like the water content.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's very, very nutritious too. You
Yeah.
can put any vegetable you want. Just make it easy. Yeah.
Sweat out some of those toxins.
Good job, man.
You made it. I didn't do nothing.
Good job eating.
Oh.
Good job tasting. Good job loving our food.
Your food?
Our food.
That's it?
Think of it.
Okay.
Thank you all so much for watching our first home cooking 101 video. I really hope that this video helped you out. I would love to know what you're struggling with making at home next. Just leave your comment in the comment section and we would love to pick your item next on the next video. Thank you so much for joining us in the kitchen. As always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed this content, and we will see you on the next video. Bye, everybody.